Okie dokie, one last one for the day. It's your guys' favorite kind of video where I do read out loud play-by-play of some dumb shit the mainstream media is talking about. This one's called Whitmer has authority to order new stay-at-home order in Michigan. Ooh. Lansing, Michigan, Associated Press, which is garbage, by the way. Governor Gretchen Whitmer said Monday she has the authority to issue a second stay-at-home order to curb the spiking coronavirus if necessary, and called a comment by an advisor to Donald Trump urging people to rise up against Michigan's latest restrictions incredibly reckless. Well, I would argue that is what is more reckless is to try and make an end run around the Supreme fucking Court of Michigan by just making more proclamations, which you do not have the authority to make. That's been clarified by the legislature now and by the Supreme Court. I get there's a bunch of really scared, stupid motherfuckers out there that think these lockdowns make a difference. They don't. Go look at countries that had lockdowns, go look at states that had lockdowns versus those that didn't, and you'll see spikes and rises in cases as, you know, you would expect to see with a pathogen that we can't test very well for, that we test with 4 tests that are fucking garbage, which, by the way, if you're curious at all about why weird shit happens like with our good friend Elon Musk, where 2 positive, 2 negative tests, go look into how the PCR test itself works. That's totally non-biased, well-sourced, blot, whatever, fuck that stupid shit. You know, and anytime, on a side note, anytime somebody brings that up, I just think they're fucking stupid. Like, oh, I need to know what source you got that from because I fundamentally can't think critically myself, and that's why you get this autistic screeching about sources and blah, blah, blah. It's just, you know, you people are so fucking stupid, it boggles my mind. And we're all gonna pay for it. That's the part that sucks. But just curb spiking coronavirus. Okay, more testing, more cases. Oh, what's this? The test might get, declared positive because somebody has a common cold. Oh, what's this? Common cold antibodies offer resistance to the coronavirus. Wouldn't it just be fucking hilarious if this amounts to nothing more than a very virulent flu and like the entirety of Western civilization was just destroyed by a literal joke? You know, it's just absolutely ridiculous. We continue on. The Democrat governor spoke with Capitol reporters a day after announcing limits amid a surge of COVID-19 cases that have led to increased hospitalizations and deaths. Other Midwest states are facing similar record waves as the weather cools, and she has urged the public to double down with precautions to avoid a shelter-in-place order like was instituted in the spring, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was found to be unconstitutional. So to anybody watching this in Michigan, if the governor issues some stupid, useless, economy-destroying, strangely favorable to socialist economic policy stay-at-home order, do not listen to her. She cannot tell you what to do, and nothing will happen. If you get a fine, you will probably get a pro bono lawyer, and it will be destroyed in court. But to my knowledge, other than small businesses, unsurprisingly, nobody's really been getting fined. And it's like, so the cases spiked, so now we lock down. But where is the proof that this lockdown will work? If you look at a lot of the claims they make about actions the government has taken to slow the spread, a lot of it is fundamentally not falsifiable. So it's kind of hard to disprove the idea that the lockdowns made a difference in the mind of your average retard sheep. I guess that equates to, why they're okay and why people like me are selfish. Like, really? Yeah, you're gonna think of me as real selfish when you're slaving away in a gulag or can't buy fucking food because the currency's hyperinflated and there's no jobs left anyway, even if it was, because of what your beloved fucking government did to help protect you from something you had a 99.7 or higher chance of surviving. So you see, it gets really fucking ridiculous the more you look into it. Whitmer responded to a tweet sent Sunday night by Scott Atlas, a science advisor to Trump, who urged people to rise up after the governor's announcement. Trump himself has urged supporters to push Whitmer to reopen the state following COVID-19 restrictions, and 14 men have been charged in connection with an alleged plot to kidnap the governor. That was bullshit. That was total bullshit. I think as time goes on, we're going to find that was classic entrapment by law enforcement, something that has been very common by our lovely, FBI, CIA, all these fucking, useless tech-sucking organizations that help keep fundamentally boots on our throat and who like to act in, a clearly partisan fashion by arguably falsifying claims about kidnapping plots and goading people in to do that. So that whole thing was bullshit. I don't know about Scott Atlas. I don't know who he is. If he said to rise up, obviously you've got to couch that in let's not be violent. Obviously nobody wants to be violent. The problem is that when things deteriorate economically so severely that it no longer becomes an option, who do we point the finger at? Is it somebody like Scott Atlas who said, hey guys, maybe you should stop farting around with this kind of stupid shit. I don't know. It's just incredibly reckless considering everything that has happened, everything that is going on, Whitmer said. And now pay very close attention to the language. You notice how it's very haughty and very like conciliatory, It's very like, it very much glosses over all the people that fucking kill themselves because they lose their job, all the people who die from, not being able to access elective surgery, all the businesses that are shuttered forever, all the jobs that you can never get back, all the irreparable damage done to the zeitgeist of the nation, the currency, the financial standing of the country, perhaps even our very way of life, just glosses right over that. We got to sacrifice literally fucking everything to maybe save lives. It's just, what a thing this is going to be to look back on. So, we really all need to be focused on the public health crisis that is ravaging our country and that poses a very real threat to every one of us. Now, that's flat out bullshit. The country has not been ravaged by coronavirus. The country has been ravaged by little dictators like Gretchen Whitmer. And by the way, if you think this is bad, when Joe Biden gets installed, because there was election fraud, that much should be obvious to anybody who's not a complete fucking idiot. When Joe Biden gets installed into office, if Trump isn't able to pull off staying in power, if you think what Gretchen Whitmer has done is bad, wait until you see what happens in the wake of Joe Biden's lovely and also useless response to the coronavirus. And I mean useless insofar as its primary goal and mission statement would be to slow the spread. It won't. It's going to keep spreading. Only now we get to live in basically a third world country. So that'll be fun. So fucking stupid. Atlas later tweeted that he never would endorse or incite violence, which is cool and which is important because right now we're at a point where we don't need to use violence. But when food is scarce because the economy no longer functions, what do you think's going to happen? You think everybody's going to start fires outside and sing fucking Kumbaya? No, they're going to be killing each other so they can eat. That's what happens when socialists get into power, and that's what happens when socialists pull stupid shit over quasi-legitimate crises like coronavirus purely for the intent of pushing their means. And I know it's not like purely socialist. I know the ruling classes are behind this in a lot of ways, but I feel like you guys kind of get the gist here. So, under the new restrictions that start Wednesday, Michigan high school students and colleges must halt in-person classes. Well, what about masks? I thought they were effective. If you just wear a fucking mask, doesn't that prevent you from spreading it? Unless that's bullshit too. Or unless, breath isn't the primary cause of it. I wonder, the data we're going to see on if I'm just sitting here breathing normally, how many, if again, let's assume I was infected with coronavirus, I want to see how many infective particles are going to travel from my mouth if I'm just using a mask and the degree to which that, makes a fucking difference anyway. But, restaurants must stop indoor dining and entertainment businesses must close for 3 weeks. Gathering sizes will also be tightened. Again, there's no proof that these measures do anything but destroy the economy and cause all sorts of other problems. It's going all the way back to, I think it was Bastiat who talked about the seen versus the unseen. So to the mind of your average idiot, they see, people they're getting infected. We have to do something. Something must be done. So that's the seen. The unseen is all the other shit I listed off previously, like the destruction of the economy, the debasement of the currency, the suicide, There's plenty of stuff that all these government responses are causing that are far worse than being infected with COVID. I don't care if, a very small percentage of people have lifelong problems from it. I get it. That sucks. Hell, I might be one of them. I don't know. But the problem is that there is only so much of the week that we can save before everybody gets fucked. And it's going to get to the point where there's not going to be any money they can print off. There's not going to be any of these other measures that we used earlier in March to kind of keep things in order because all those bullets are going to have been fired by the Fed and all their other mechanisms. And that's when you're going to be having a real problem. And then when all this coronavirus shit will probably become clear to you. So unfortunately, by then it's far too late and we no longer have a glorious, great, cool country to live in with lots of money. The thing with restaurants, it's like, well, wait, I thought if you walk in with a mask on and then take it off when you sit down, that's fine. Like that's totally not just some ritual to make people safer or feel safer about something they can't control. And don't even get me started on that mask bullshit. You guys remember that dumb old fuck at the polls, right? Love it when that happens. It's a shame I don't get to crush more worthless fucking stupid idiots like that who are using an actual crisis to basically as an excuse to bully somebody. So please, if you got a fucking problem with me not wearing a mask, do come and say something to my face. She noted that lawmakers enacted laws keeping intact unemployment benefits and addressing other matters after the state Supreme Court's October rule striking down a law she repeatedly used to respond to the pandemic, but said her administration can continue largely combating the pandemic unilaterally under another public health law. Yes, you're using the public health department to make an end run around the Supreme Court decision. Very, very tyrannical of you, very subversive of you, very communist of you, right? So as a side note, guys, think about how, what was it, like back in March or April in the wake of the death of George Floyd due to egregious amounts of fentanyl, by the way. Remember when they went all around the country declaring racism to be a public health crisis? Well, guess what? When something's a public health crisis, now the health department can do all sorts of fun stuff, or at least try to do fun stuff. We can see that basically, again, only businesses are shuttered, which has a very bad effect on all of us, but keep that in mind. There's a whole lot going on here aside from just the whole, stop the spread, you know? So fucking stupid, you know? Michigan's 7-day average of daily new cases has more than doubled from 3,100 to 6,800 over 2 weeks. It is up nearly 5-fold from 30 days ago. Daily deaths have surged from 25 to 62, according to the COVID tracking project. Wow, 62 people a day. Wow, so all of us, all 10 million of us in the state, get bent over and fucked just to save them, who probably wouldn't have made it very much longer anyway. Have you people not heard of this phenomenon called herd immunity, where, you know, a pathogen is no longer able to spread through a given population because of how much immunity has been built up by the population at large? Are you allowing that process to take place? No. Instead, what you're doing is putting pressure on coronavirus to become more transmissible, to become more deadly, because that virus wants to continue existing as much as you and I do, perhaps not within a brilliant first world economy, but continue existing nonetheless. That's why we see with pathogens like this that over time they tend to become less deadly, because guess what? If you're a pathogen and you kill too many people, you don't get to live anymore. So, you know, it is just, and then not to mention all the secondary damage from, you know, your immune system not being exposed to the things it needs to stay strong, and it's just on and on and on. All the social damage from not being able to get out and hang out with people. I mean, it is seriously fucked up, all the stuff that they're doing. And I, you know, the news articles like this, they really get my motor running, because it's just like you get to see everything, the mealy-mouthed bullshit, as we pretend to care about people while, you know, fundamentally benefiting ourselves, and that we get more power. I'm obviously referring to people in the government. Just minuscule. So a few dozens of people die, and we have to pay the price of our entire economy. And I get that they mentioned unemployment benefits, but it's like, dude, cool, that doesn't work once the dollar goes under. So, you know, you don't have an infinite money printer, and isn't it convenient that this coronavirus shit, I think, on a side note, happened? Because if you think about it, do you think the mail-in voting fraud that happened would have been anywhere near as successful or prevalent if there wouldn't have been coronavirus out there, allegedly out there? Do you think they would have mailed out ballots preemptively to people if there wouldn't have been? So all of it really starts to fucking stink the more you look into it. Like, I'm sure, despite seeing zero evidence myself, that the virus exists, and I'm sure people die from it, again, despite having any evidence of that, despite talking to many health professionals whose hospitals are not overwhelmed. You know, I'm sure it's out there, you know, killing somebody, but it all really starts to stink the more that you look into it, and the more you really start to apply critical thinking to a lot of the claims that the government is making, that the media is making. Life is suffering, life is death. And yes, to an extent, that sort of thing, it needs to be avoided. But when the consequences of avoiding that suffering become worse than the suffering you would have already had, you know, you shot yourself in the foot. And not in a way that I think very many Americans alive now can even begin to comprehend. So again, you know, stay peaceful. Don't do anything crazy. Just make sure that, you know, you're helping support people like Trump that are trying to put a stop to this shit, and make sure that you are, at the very least, with people that you know in whatever, like, constructive setting that you want to try and talk about. You're having conversations about this hysteria from coronavirus, about all the bullshit and all the lies and all the politically convenient tools and stuff that is put into place for people that hate this country, hate winning, and want to see nothing more but a bigger boot on our throat.